The Minister in the Presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, joins us now to unpack this further. Minister, I want to frame to you the crisis of crime in South Africa and the approach of the government to it. The approach has been, up until last year at least, the deployment of the military during times when there are heightened gang violence. We've seen this deployment on the Cape Flats before. It was subdued a little bit, gang violence, but it then resurged, right? In fact, the military seemed to have not had much of a dent on the toll of deaths that were recorded over a specific time in the Western Cape, at least 2 to 3 years ago. What makes the president think that this time around, the military will be effective in subduing the violence on the Cape Flats and other gang-ridden areas in a sustained way?
Thank you for that question. I think the difference is that now we are not doing only the deployment of the defense, we are doing a deployment of an integrated organized crime, anti-organized crime strategy. And that anti-organized crime strategy talks about dealing with gang violence through and other organized crimes through intelligence-driven operations, which the intelligence, as the president has announced, is going to be centralized nationally so that we can then do a complete approach. Secondly, you are going to integrate with the use of technology so that you can then be able to use the AI analytics and to get an effective response. Thirdly, you're going to regulate, as the president has directed, and I earlier today announced that in March we are going to, as the National Convention's Arms Control Committee, we are going to consider the regulations for the use of importation, trade, and use of firearms and ammunition in consultation with the Minister of Police in terms of the Firearms Control Act, to make sure we streamline that so that we remove the firepower within the gang violence. The period wherein we had the gang violence subdued is because the defense came in and they've got the necessary firepower. But if you just deploy the police alone without doing all these other measures, you're not going to succeed, because if not, the police do not have the right firepower.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the firepower of the police as you frame it, Minister. Last year in the State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa promised us 10,000 new police officers that would be appointed, boots on the ground this year. That simply just did not happen. While we can blame the fiscal environment we found ourselves in, far lower number than 10,000 had been deployed in this fiscal year. It seems like the president has shifted his attention away from saying we need to ramp up the police force, service rather, and have the ratio of police to citizens reflect something a little bit more manageable. We're still not there yet. It seems as though, as many argue, that the military is being brought in to cover up of the failures of the South African police service. The military has capabilities that are limited when it comes to crime detection, crime investigation, and crime prosecution. The military has an entirely separate function to that. Why is it that we keep using the military and not actually put the resources behind the South African police service?
Actually, you are incorrect. The police, we hired 20,000 over a 2-year period. The other 10,000 was last year. The other one was another year. This year, we're going to hire an additional 5,000. So that training has taken place, and they were what do they call them? They were marched out by the Minister of Police to release them to go into various deployments. We accept that the number is not sufficient enough. The military is not being deployed alone. The military is coming to support the criminal justice system to fight crime. And that's what I was explaining earlier, to say there's a myriad of other activities to do with the intelligence-driven investigations, also the national, using the technology, increasing more police on the ground, but also a collaborated strategy. We've got a full-blown strategy behind the work of fighting crimes and organized crime in particular, and also correcting the availability of firepower that is higher than that which the police have. And that's part of the work that we have to do, and that's what the deployment of the military is going to do, to support us all. But the lead component is always the police and the criminal justice system. The defense is backup in cases of dangerous criminals.
Yeah, perhaps to ask this question about resource management. It will cost anywhere between 60 to 150 million rand for the deployment of the police in the Cape Flats of Mitchell's Plain alone. We know this number to be the case because that's what was calculated the last time around such an intervention was undertaken. Is this an optimal use of resources rather than just saying, let's take that 150 million rand and get additional police boots on the ground that are able to do the full capacity of complement of services that the police are meant to do? Like I said earlier, crime detection, crime investigation, and crime prosecution.
Let me give you this response. If you can use that money to recruit the police, but they still have to take them through the training process and release them and deploy them and get mentors to supervise them and to get them properly ready to fight crime on the ground. But you've got an immediate crisis now when the gang violence has risen to exponential level. You need a response now. So the military intervention is not a permanent solution. It's a temporary solution to deal with the current problem that we're of increased criminality and also the arrogance of the criminal cartels and networks. And that's what we are responding on. And what we're talking about is what we are doing as part of that work for making sure that at a long-term level, sustainably, we can deal with crime. We're strengthening our detective systems. If you recall, 2 years ago, we recalled other detectives who had gone on early retirement, even who were above the retirement age, to bring them back so that we can increase the capacity of investigation and detective work within the South African Police Service. On our part as state security, we have been restructuring ourselves to make sure that we respond, and that's why if you looked at the 2019 to 2024, excuse me, national intelligence priorities, we said this fight against organized crime requires a different approach, and that approach will include both short-term, medium, and long-term measures. Yeah,
Minister, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. Minister Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, the Minister in the Presidency.